Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for tuning in for another new episode. And I tell you it's amazing or awesome or fantastic, but Hanna would give me shit for it. And he would just pop in here and be like, hey, motherfucker, stop saying that shit. You keep saying this every time. So instead of introducing the episode that way, I'm going to tell you it is Tuesday, April 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And you have got 5 awesome-ass motherfucking people that have recorded in advance to bring you the best of the best of the best. So tonight, I thought it would be fun. Going back to Atheist Analysis days, we used to do hangouts where we just have gaggles of people join, and we just have long conversations. And our good friends over at Not Another Atheist Podcast have decided that they would like to entertain hanging out with us for another time. And so we had so much fun last time they were on, we decided, hey, let's do an actual topical show and just bring them back on. So we don't want to interview them. We don't need to hear about their shit. But we do want to have a conversation with them about some of the other bullshit going on in society. So without too much further ado, let me introduce my co-host, Mr. Chris Hanna. How are you tonight, sir?
I guess you could call it hungover or sleep deprived, one of the two. We party a little hard at the hangouts and stuff, and I'm not as young as I used to be, so I guess work and doing all kinds of other stuff is wearing me out, and everybody's making fun of me. But I guess I'll have to deal with it and try to figure out a way to get some energy for the rest of the show here. 'Cause there's no way to have a low energy when you got Keith and Jen running around all over the screen.
Just because I'm 4'10" does not mean you have to refer to me like I'm a fucking toddler, okay?
Well, I'm glad somebody made a joke about Jennifer being a toddler. It's about damn time. People get mad at me.
You were like the
I
only fucking person that called me by my full fucking name. You were the only fucking person on this planet that does that.
For the rest of the night, I would like to introduce my next two guests, Jennifer and Keithifer. The whole point of tonight was to have a lot of fun. And I even have a friend.
I smoke a lot of meth too.
There's no meth. We don't do meth around here.
I was lied to.
We do drink a lot.
Then what the fuck am I doing here? This is bullshit.
I don't know. You're in a state that you can get plenty of meth. You don't.
I know.
Yeah, we were led here under false pretense.
No, do you know that you can actually buy meth in this town at the Piggly Wiggly? There's a dealer in front of the fucking Piggly Wiggly. I'm not even kidding.
Okay, what's a Piggly Wiggly? So we're
it's like a southern chain supermarket. It's a supermarket that's like southern based and.
Seriously?
Get out of my fucking water, bitch. Yeah, it's called the Piggly Wiggly.
Okay, so
just for anybody listening at home, Jen doesn't have Tourette's and start randomly yelling, "Get out of my water, bitch!" It's just that her cat was walking behind her and she felt the need to threaten its life. Now back to the show.
Yeah. So hold on. So there's a game called Piggly Wiggly.
No, it's a supermarket. Oh, is there? Is it like
there was a game and you were Piggly Wiggly? It's not that serious. Like, so when I hear that, I think of this board game I used to play with my sister all the time, and I can't imagine that there's an actual fucking structure.
Yeah, and it's like a chain of supermarkets. They're really successful. Like and they've been in business for a really long time.
Huh. I am never buying anything.
Mind fucking blown.
All right, so tonight, the goal of tonight was to have a conversation about a couple of different topics, and I reached out to Keith and Jennifer, and we were talking about different topics that we did, and Keith and Hanna have a great science segment planned. But before we get into the science segment, we're going to talk about Celebgate, because I think it's an important issue, and I think it's an important discussion that we should have. And I have a personal story from a friend within the movement that I would like to share towards the end of it as well. So we're going to talk about Celebgate, we're going to talk about gluten-free diets, and we're going to also talk about video games, because we're going to talk about a game called Riot, where it randomizes the character that you are. And before we get going too far, I want to do a quick intro, and I just want Keith and Jen, make sure you tell us where we can find your podcast.
Oh, yeah, you can find us online. if for some reason you do decide that you've drilled a hole into your brain and want to drool while you giggle at something, just pop into Google, hit Not Another Atheist Podcast. You can find us on WordPress. It's Not Another Atheist Podcast.wordpress.com. You can find us on Facebook. We're also on Stitcher. And for some reason, we're still waiting to show up on Google Play, even though I received the confirmation email about that one. So
we're on iTunes and Podbean under the same name too.
Awesome. See, so there we go. We got it out of the way. We made sure we propped up your show. Now let's get into Celebgate, because we know this topic is going to
piss me off,
stimulate Jennifer to the point of her yelling and screaming obscenities at the screen for the next half hour. So
she's going to do that anyways.
And I'm hopped up on sugar.
So just to give everybody a kind of an overview, if you can go to Celebgate, you can there's a hashtag for it, there is a website for it, there's all sorts of crazy shit you can find. But the big issue with the Celebgate thing is lately there's been people that hack other people's phones. And what happens is when they hack them, they're not looking for personal information in terms of accounts or money.
Phone numbers.
They're looking for nude photos. Which I guess kind
I'm sorry, no, I have to correct you. Celebgate was the actual iCloud that was hacked, not their phones.
Oh.
It was their iClouds, their iCloud accounts that were hacked.
Well, there we go. Okay, so and what's happening is there's individuals, and that's not just one. There's a lot of people going around trying to steal nude photographs of celebrities, and I guess for me the big thing would be is if you're stealing nude photographs from anybody, that seems like bullshit. But obviously there's going to be a little bit more attention because they're celebrities, and there's going to be a conversation about this. And so I think the big conversation tonight is is it a violation of personal property? B, can we do something about it? And C, where do we go as a society with this? Because if you look at what happens in the celebrity world, and you look at their shows like what the hell is the name of that show with the girl from Friends?
Courtney Cox.
Yes, Courtney Cox. She has another show called Dirt. I believe it's called Dirt, and it's actually
wasn't she in Cougar Town?
That's the show I was thinking.
I don't watch that show, but in the show for Dirt, the one that was on, it came out right around the time that Tuck did, and so that's why I watch it. But the whole point of that is people go around and they take photographs illegally of celebrities. They basically invade their whole lives and do crazy ass shit. And so this stuff has existed for a while, but nobody's ever addressed it. There's no actual laws or rules against it. People aren't getting prosecuted the same way that they used to.
The one time that was addressed was Princess Diana's death.
Yeah.
I think that was the one time it was ever really addressed.
There are lawsuits, things that happen pretty regularly here and there, but it's not major media coverage stuff.
Right.
People get sued, people get arrested, actors punch cameras. I mean, there's all kinds of little things like that, but it never makes a real big splash.
But I think that's a point, because A, that's never been addressed, and B, so now the question becomes is now they're invading the cyberspace, and they're stealing nude photographs. And so we should have a conversation, because to me it almost feels indecent. It almost feels like it's something that,
like you're robbing somebody.
Yes, like you're robbing somebody, or we should be leaving celebrities alone. Like, I understand that there's money in this, right? But that's almost where it seems like capitalism is failing. It's failing society, because what they're doing is they're turning around and they're saying, hey, we're going to make money off of photographing you and all your private moments. And it's like, at some point, why can't we just leave them alone and let them do what they got to do? And why is it this big thing that everybody just goes around and attacks?
Well, it's that is the very definition of capitalism. If there's a market, you're allowed to gather materials to sell to that market. Right. And so the regulation, the government's job in regulating our lives, our safety-wise, not so much regulating what we do, but regulating our lives and regulating our market and the economy. That's what the government is. Besides protecting the people, it's a regulatory system. And so this is another case of a place where there needs to be cybersecurity and things like that. Anyways, it's just we're talking the cybersecurity situations and stuff like that. It's an area that needs to be a little bit better addressed as far as nationwide. It's something like this where there's all these new clouds and the stuff that isn't watched as intentionally. Obviously, Apple did not secure it,
And so these things getting out. But I personally don't see, if you go in and steal someone's picture or whatever, to me there's no difference than going into their house while they're sleeping and taking a photo of them in their bed. It's breaking into their space.
Stealing, or like going in and stealing a family photo album.
Yeah. And so why is this legal? I guess I don't understand why this seems to be legal. Why we've allowed this.
It's not legal. The guy that actually hacked into it is actually facing like 40 years in jail right now. But I think it was more of a. It wasn't the fact that he actually stole pictures. It was more of the security breach. It was more the actual hacking than it was the taking. And so
shouldn't that concern you? I mean, shouldn't that concern all of us, really? I mean,
it does, but what excuse do we get? Oh, the law just hasn't caught up with technology yet.
Well, and it's true, though. I mean, technology has skyrocketed. Look at how much more we can do with our average computer, and there's a lot of things where it is so difficult for us to, really kind of catch up in legality issues. So that's why people get to hide on the internet. I mean, let's face it, nowadays, the average paparazzo is just somebody who fucking literally is a stalker. Why would they want to do that?
Or, stands outside of an airport with a fucking camera, with a phone,
why do that when that's borderline stalking? There's a lot more issues legally with that, doing that, than there is, hopping online, writing a couple of lines of code or several hundred lines of code, getting into, somebody else's phone, and boop, next thing you know, you can see their titas and tatas and boom,
right.
Whatever else you want to call it.
I think we're all a little bit more, I guess, believing in the security and safety of our own information. Not a lot of people really pay attention to protecting their information, their data, and it's something that people are slowly realizing. And I think that there's a small disconnect between how important it is. If nobody's ever had their identity stolen, they don't pay attention. They just assume that.
Oh, it's going to be.
Yeah. So, but okay.
Celebrity, it gets a bigger deal.
Yeah, but I think we should, let's go back to the laws. So I disagree that the laws shouldn't catch up. Like, I get technology evolves very fast, right? But isn't that what we pay our politicians for? Isn't that what?
I don't think we're trying to use that as an excuse. I think that's just kind of us trying to explain as to what's happening. And in all honesty, it is the major I don't know, I guess, fault of politicians to not, work more diligently to keep up with this, because now we have more legal issues that we need to deal with. I mean, hell, even look at cyberbullying laws. We're still seeing cases where, well, it's really tough to say, it's such a legal gray area because we've never had these precedents before. And it's like, well, fuck, now the victim's getting screwed over, and they have to be the arbiters for these movements to try to make sure that this shit does not happen.
Yeah. And so I guess, so Jen, you were the one that brought the topic up, and you were the one that said, hey, this is a big interest to me. So is there anything outside of what we've already talked about that piques your interest or pisses you off?
People, they release these on the internet, and people turn them into memes, and these were, it's mainly photos of Jennifer Lawrence that I've been seeing, who was absolutely the biggest victim. She had the most pictures taken. And it's these, people make memes out of it, and they keep reposting things, and it's like, you don't understand that this is a constant violation of consent that you're contributing to. Every time you repost one of these, you are literally violating a woman's sexual consent.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, she shouldn't have put them on the cloud, and it was out on the internet anyway. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about revenge porn. Say it was, your mother or your sister in one of them, and somebody caught a screenshot of it, of her making, this epic O face, and they made a meme out of it, and they start reposting that. Wouldn't you feel like your mother or your sister, for women, your sexual consent was being violated time and time and again? So why is it that this woman is untouchable? Why? Because of her job?
So how about this? And I'll ask. I'm going to direct this right at you, Jen, since you're the only female in the group right now. But if you take the personal aspect out of it, right? Like, I don't think it should be just a personal thing. If it's any woman, do you feel it's because some of our society is very chauvinistic?
Yes.
There's a lot of sexist tones, and so people just don't seem to care, because it's like, oh, hey, I see 100 naked images a day. What's one more? Oh, she's happy. Who cares?
I don't think it's, I see the 100 naked images a day thing. I think it's a large part of our society, and a large part of our society's thinking is women are still subservient. And to where it's, oh my God, that poor guy, it's, well, she shouldn't have taken those pictures if she didn't want them to get out.
Yeah.
So it's her
That's
fault.
the argument. That's an argument that I've heard a few times. It's her fault. It's her fault she took those photos.
But yet, on the flip side, of that, she had taken those for Nicholas Holt, who she was dating for a long time. She was dating him at the time. So now here's the argument this girl has. Say she didn't comply with his sexual wants and sexual desires through these pictures, and they broke up because of it. So then it would have been her fault for not doing it. So she does it. The pictures get hacked. They get released. Well, if she didn't want those pictures out there, she shouldn't have taken them.
No matter what, she can't win. It's just like
No matter
women
what.
on the internet. You know, they get accosted by men on, say, social media and dating apps, and people say, well, you didn't need to be so rude. And it's like, no, I deal with this hundreds of times a day. I shouldn't be dealing with this, period. Well, maybe you should just ignore it. If I ignore it, it gets worse. But
then, if you tolerate the behavior, why do you allow yourself to be treated this way?
It's a catch-22. It's a constant double-edged sword. No matter what, you're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't.
The way we look at women in today's society is it's at this really weird fucking impasse, because they're expected to now be strong and equal to men, but people are still holding on to these archaic fucking ideals that they have to be these quiet little subservient women. And it's like, look, bitch, I can't be both.
Yeah.
I can't be both. Unless you want me in a dominatrix outfit, half naked, and beating the shit out of somebody, I can't be both. I fucking can't be both. I can't be the happy little housewife submitting to her husband's sexual fantasies while telling him he's a piece of shit. No, I fucking can't do that. Because if I tell my husband he's a piece of shit, then it's like, oh, you treat him like shit, no wonder he fucking left you. But if I keep up with it, oh, that's so sad, why are you putting your kids through that? It's like, fucking really?
And I agree with you. I think there's a symptom of society that, obviously, podcasts like both of ours are working to try and help reverse that social norm. And there was another article I found, that talked about a guy that got sentenced to 18 years, right? And this is clickbait for like a motherfucker. It says revenge porn website operator sentenced to 18 years. And you're like, oh, good. They're finally doing something. Somebody's going to sentence this motherfucker to 18 years in jail. No, he's sentenced to 18 years in custody because it's a fucking misdemeanor for running a revenge porn website that leaked naked and sexually explicit pictures of women posted by angry ex-boyfriends and ex-husbands. And nobody's actually looking at this and going, okay, well, hold on. He's profiteering. He's running a capitalistic website and profiteering off of other people's misery.
See, and it's not just off of other people's misery. Here's the big fucking marker that everyone is missing. These are sexually explicit photos. These are photos that a person had to be comfortable enough in their sexuality and offer up their sexuality to take and to give to somebody. You are literally violating someone's sexual consent.
There's really nothing more to it than that.
That is the bottom fucking line. Not of course they're gonna be miserable about it, but the bottom fucking line is that you were literally this is a sexual assault. This is a fucking sexual assault. And it's why it's not a sexual assault, because you're not physically touching somebody.
And I think that's a good point.
I'm sorry, but you can't fucking tell me that having child porn is sexual assault, but releasing naked pictures of a woman without her consent isn't. Yes, it's fucking 10 times worse when that it's a fucking child. Don't get me wrong. Oh my god, it's fucking so much worse. But it's still the fact of it's still the same crime. Because if you were not the one that those pictures were intended for, there's a fucking hole. That's pretty much taking a woman's body from her, and then it's like releasing a videotape of you and your ex-girlfriend having sex. You're violating her consent on her sexuality. This is a fucking crime.
So how about this? So the One Night in Paris video that was recorded.
I don't know if they were agreeable to releasing that.
Yeah, that she seemed to promote it almost.
Well, and so that's the question. So my question is if she promotes it, right? So if she's the one that says, "Hey,
if she gives her consent and says it's okay, sure."
Okay.
Well, me.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Like the One Night in Paris stuff and the Kim Kardashian stuff, we don't really know if that was put out intentionally,
or if they had approached them and said, "We're going to release this. We want your permission. Please sign off on the rights to release this."
Or the other situation is it's out there. There's no way to get it back, and so they just monetize it. There's no other way to control it. So
but unless the person that unless the person that is in the video or in the pictures is the one monetizing off of it, then nobody else has the right to.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
right.
Paris Hilton, her video,
and Kim Kardashian also. Yeah, they both.
Yeah, and so it's out there. They have no way to get it back. Once it's on the internet, it's there.
It's there.
And so they basically turn around and they just try to monetize it.
But why is the hacking a crime? How come we're not attaching violation of sexual consent on top of this?
Because it's so hard to track. This is one of the things that this cybersecurity and the government and the regulations. The reason why this is such a gray situation politically is because all of us. I'm sure you've heard of CISPA and all these other internet regulation, darknet government consolidation,
Tor browser shit. Yeah.
And so like the government's trying to clamp down on that kind of stuff. In order to do that, through your rights to gain this protection from the overseeing body. The same situation happens with if you want the government to watch you and help protect you from getting your stuff stolen, you have to let it in to your information.
But it's not even it's not even letting it into the information. It's when someone stands up and says, "Hey, my fucking account was hacked, and these are sexually explicit photos that were meant to be private that I did not give my consent to be released." Why is that not classified as a sexual assault?
Well, that's
or a violation of sexual consent.
I don't really think anybody would say that is not a case, that shouldn't be that. But basically the reason why these things don't get prosecuted as much is because a lot of times, how do you find these people? I mean,
that's true.
You know what I mean? And so we're looking at basically if we all have some kind of personal identification that whenever we're on a machine or on a computer, it's you. There's no way around it. Everyone on the internet knows it's you. You can't hide from anonymity. And so, like, if the government says, well, in order to use the internet, you have to have some biological coded whatever. This is your.
But we do already. We already do. We already have tracking cookies, and we already have fucking, IP addresses that will literally lead you right back to your fucking house, to where they can determine if it was you or not. Why is it that this guy, they found this fucking guy, he's on fucking trial, and he's on trial for hacking, not for violating the sexual consent and the sexual rights of 10 fucking people?
I can't. It's probably something to do with the prosecuting attorneys and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this is a giant political problem, and so there's not going to be a.
But the issue is that we don't have laws on the books for it. We don't have laws on the books for sex crimes like this. And let's call it what it is. It's a sex crime.
Absolutely.
One of the things that we talked about is like the government and laws seem to be slow. They seem to be behind the technology curve. Well, there's a reason for that. Sometimes you want the government to move slow because think about it. What happens when governments are fast and efficient?
They're invasive.
They take over shit. And so you want the government to be slow and inefficient to a certain degree. You want it to be good at what it does, but you want it to be a little bit behind.
You want it to you want them to double check, make sure that they're not overstepping.
This could be a case where, let's say, it's a bit of a masochistic and hopefully maybe not too much of the male perspective in the political arena where, I mean, let's face it, there's probably male-dominated people that are making these kinds of laws that don't see it as big of a deal or something like that. So those kinds of things slow the process down. Maybe in the next couple of years when this isn't.
There's something else that bugged me. When I confronted this person about reposting it, and I told them, what if it was your mother or your daughter or your sister that this happened to? And you're scrolling through Instagram, and here it is again. Here's this picture again. Well, it's not my mother and my sister, because my mother, my sister, my daughter wouldn't do that. Yeah. And I hate coming back to the fact that she's somebody's daughter, she's somebody's mother. No, she's somebody. She's somebody. Right there. These are fucking people. You'll get fucking attached if your fucking video game character dies. But you won't sit there and say this is fucked up that some woman's having her fucking sexual consent violated millions and millions and millions of times over on the fucking internet.
All right, so it looks like we've all agreed that we would all take one solid kick to the curb stomp to the people who share this crap online.
Absolutely.
That sounds like
we've closed that door completely.
As we walk away the segment and trying to get into our next segment here in a few seconds, there was an interesting post from an individual, and I won't bring their name into it, but there was an individual that I've kind of been friends with for the last year and a half, and they're not a big feminist type. Them and I, we've argued over their feminist stance, and her and I don't get along in that aspect. We get along everywhere else, but in that aspect we don't. But she posted, 2 or 3 weeks ago, that she was in a live Google Hangout, and she was in there with some of her family members who are on opposite sides of the fence than she is. And what was happening is somebody randomly popped into this Hangout and decided to graphically describe what she does for a living in front of her relative. And, that to me, that was a caveat. And I wanted to read her post before we moved into the next topic. She says, a week or so ago, in a religious atheist Google Hangout with certain family members of mine, somebody decided to graphically share my work identity with everybody. This was all very upsetting to my family and caused a lot of gossip within the atheist community. I've been getting emails by atheists, all of them to my work email, under my work name, informing me what happened and expressing support from me. This would be nice if the emails weren't sent under a thinly veiled attempt to have sex with me. This is wildly inappropriate, and I can't really identify why. I've never before considered people trying to have sex with me to be offensive. Maybe it's because this is happening to people who know my real name, who know my family, or who viewed me as a non-sexual individual. Maybe it's also because they were hitting on me right after telling me information that is extremely sensitive. Your identity being leaked in front of your whole family publicly is not something to shy away from. And this demonstrates a complete lack of empathy or awareness of what it means to my personal life. Both of these explanations sound kind of right, but aren't intuitively satisfying to me. Normally I don't feel negative effects from women being sexual objects, but today I do. I'm trying to figure out how to categorize this type of behavior into my model and my worldview, and trying to figure out if my negative emotions towards this are justified, or if they are just demonstrating a lack of understanding towards the people sending emails. And so, as we wrap this segment up, I want to point out that this, to me, this statement from somebody that has a different opinion on feminism than I do, somebody that actually is expressing emotion, we have to take these people as real people. We have to understand that this is not something we should just be going out and doing. We shouldn't be sharing these memes. We shouldn't be looking at these photos. We should be encouraging people to stop, and we should be going out of our way to figure out how we can change the laws to get things correct. We should stop objectifying women just for the sake of a view or a dollar. But as we move on to our next segment, when we come back from this quick commercial break, we're going to be talking about gluten-free diets and why Hanna has converted his wife, his daughter, and himself to a gluten-free diet. We'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
What?
Hello, I'm Miss B. Haven.
I'm Demanda Wright.
And we're
promoting secular feminism. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Like what you're hearing? Check out more Cellar Door Skeptics every week right here on Spreaker and iTunes. Make sure you come back and check out new episodes with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. And always, remember, prepare for the revolution.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist, and I'm alarmed by the intrusions of religion into our secular government. That's why I'm asking you to support the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics, working to keep state and church separate, just like our founding fathers intended. Please support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
Hi, this is Sharon Bush, newest and most badass host of the Unbuckling the Bible Belt podcast, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you for sticking around through that first segment. With me right now, I have Keith and Jen, and I also have my good friend, my co-host, Mr. Hanna.
This next segment, we're going to be talking about gluten-free diet.
Because we want to have a conversation about why Hanna and his wife have transitioned their daughter into eating gluten-free products. And for anybody that is listening to this, it's just a joke. So when Hanna brought this topic up, it's an interesting topic, and we were doing some research, and it basically says by one estimate, there's over 18 million Americans that have some degree of gluten sensitivity. And so, that makes sense, right? We should have that. If we've evolved and we've introduced all these new different things, there should be some sort of sensitivity. But I think if we look at the woo-woo science and we look at a lot of the different aspects of where people want to buy into, there is quite a bit of people that are trying to capitalize on that. And so even if the real science is involved in here, the biggest problem is when you have all these other people trying to capitalize through a model of profiteering over all these different fads. And because woo-woo medicine isn't regulated, and in America, I mean, maybe it's regulated other places, but in America, people can just put out a book that says, hey, this is science. And, next thing you know, people are on these diets and people are doing crazy things. And in reality, if it's not actually part of the gluten aspect, then we can't sit there and say that, yes, this is wrong. And so I think, Hanna has a good point in bringing this up in that, is gluten to blame? Is people's diets to blame? Or is it really just the overbearing, crazy-ass people that just want to profiteer off the libertarian capitalistic model?
Well, wow, you politicize that pretty heavily. This is basically, we see these diets come through, and Keith, with his expertise in the, physical training, or I guess you could use that word. You don't like expertise? You don't think that's a good enough word?
I was just laughing. I was like, I don't think I'm in. See, I took the great courses online, like their whole diet course is an 18-hour lecture series all by this dietitian who works with the NFL. She's a registered dietitian, which means she's an actual doctor. And she makes a very important distinction between dietitian and nutritionist. A dietitian is an actual doctor. A nutritionist is literally anyone with an interest in nutrition. Therefore, all 5 of us here tonight are nutritionists.
I'm not. I don't give a shit about nutrition.
4 of the 5 people here are nutritionists.
I make sure my kid eats healthy, but I don't fucking care otherwise.
I only care about it because I would like to lose weight, and I don't actually want to have to exercise to lose weight.
I'm so there with you. I'm so there with you.
Well, the big thing with the gluten
ate out the garbage
diet. It's just the diet, the fad diets that come through. Now, with a lot of these types of things, like the myths, and you hear about, some kind of crazy stereotypes or whatever, there's usually a little bit of a core of truth somewhere hidden inside the mess. And with the gluten stuff, that celiac disease is a real disease. See, what gluten is itself is a protein in wheat, rye, and barley. And it's commonly found in bread and all kinds of different starches and all these bread products. And so bringing back, feelings of that Atkins diet bullshit. Well, celiac disease is real. I mean, it's a real thing. About 1% of the population have it. So with that in mind, people are saying, well, this is a real disease. I'm just going to avoid this thing because I may have this disease. And people started buying gluten-free even though they had not been diagnosed or even remotely had any problems. It's just like milk. Some people are lactose intolerant. Therefore, I'm just never going to take milk because I don't want to get an upset stomach and be gassy. The logic behind this is fallacious. It's not a way to.
Sounds really stupid.
If I can interject with something there, like I actually have a minor intolerance to egg products, so I have to be careful with that. And I've actually done my own little small experiment type things where I've tried to eat a variety of different foods to figure out what it is, but across the board, like a significant amount of egg product in my food, guaranteed within half an hour, I want to die because it just feels like there's a chest burster trying to get out of me. And so I've actually had people try to feed me egg, like my grandmother when I was living with her tried it once, and within half an hour I'm standing there doing dishes, clutching my stomach going, what'd you feed me? And she goes, eggs. And I said, oh, thank you. So there's a little bit of a double-blind study, a little bit.
Well, so what we have is we have people that are self-diagnosing. and obviously there's money to be made in this. So that's what Chris was mentioning a little bit ago, is that this has turned into a billion-dollar industry. Massive groups of people are stopping the gluten-free. Subway has gluten-free whatever, and gluten-free tacos and all this kind of stuff out there. And so it's becoming something where people are avoiding it. And my basic thoughts towards avoiding something because it's a possibility that you could be it's just like avoiding peanuts because there's a possibility that you could have a peanut allergy. Well, they've done some tests on things like that, and if you expose infants to peanuts early on, there's an 80% chance they're less likely to develop some kind of peanut allergy. Evolution is a moving thing. If we stop consuming gluten, then maybe we'll all become gluten intolerant, have allergies to gluten. It's the same way with large portions of the world are lactose intolerant because they don't drink milk their whole lives and continue on and cow's milk and all that kind of stuff. So this is just a big messy thing. There's a little bit of science there, and I mean, Keith, you've got to be dealing with it. People coming in thinking that this is important and it doesn't even affect them at all.
That was the most beautiful segue because I'm sitting here and I'm going, no, don't interrupt Hanna, but I had something that I wanted to add on the whole, people, not exposing themselves to these things. I'm fairly certain it was Skeptics Guide. It's run by Dr. Stephen Novella. He's a doctor right out of Yale. His specialization is neurology, but he branches out and he researches everything to points that make Hanna look like a first grader. It is absolutely amazing. And what he was talking about in one particular episode of Skeptics Guide pertaining to gluten-free or gluten sensitivity is that a lot of people, they think they have gluten sensitivity, so they avoid it for a little bit, and then they go to get the blood work done, and when the blood work shows up that they don't have the enzymes to break it down, then it's like, oh yeah, you have this. Well, that's called confirmation bias. It's a false positive. But as Hanna was, segueing to me, is that I'm a personal trainer, and part of my job as, guiding people through the world of fitness is they do approach me with questions about nutrition, which is why I have a little bit of an education in that. Not enough for me, say I can design meal plans, but enough that I can say, okay, well, try to avoid these, try to go into those. Maybe instead of eating this particular food at this time of day, try eating it a little earlier, or you have this craving here, why not, usurp it there, blah, blah, blah. I get paid a decent amount of money to do it, and I enjoy it, but that's just another avenue of my job. But I get a lot of people saying, well, I'm avoiding gluten, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and I'm going, are you celiac?
Can I ask you? I guess without divulging where you specifically work, I kind of know what your industry is, and I know that you're probably a little bit more fit than I am, even though you have the shittier jersey. But
shots fired.
Do you guys ever provide actual literature in your place of business that you can give to other people? So do you have, hey, do you understand that maybe you're gluten sensitive and you shouldn't be gluten free, or hey, have you been tested for celiac disease? Do you guys ever have literature there that you can pass out?
This is actually something that I've been trying to bring to the industry, is the skeptical angle, because if anybody picks up a men's health or a woman's health or any sort of fit or health geared magazine or publication, a lot of cases it's all fad diets. That's why I thought it was actually kind of hilarious when I was looking through the show notes that you guys wrote up, is it was saying move over fat, salt, and sugar. There's a new dietary villain in town, and its name is gluten. That perfectly sums up the fact that my industry is so trend based, and it infuriated me before I even got into it, and that's why it took me a while to get into it. But what I'm trying to do is, when people say, well, should I do this, should I do that, and I'll say, look, based on my own limited experience in the literature, there's so little reason to actually follow through with that train of thought, because there's absolutely no evidence, or the evidence that has been used to try to promote that is so full of holes. And I kind of annoy some of my coworkers because I like to ask a lot of questions. And another thing that I did is, we have weekly team meetings, and one of us picks an article. Well, I actually picked something from Science-Based Medicine, which is a beautiful blog. I don't know if you guys have ever had the chance. If you're interested in it, go check out Science-Based Medicine. Again, it's tied to Stephen Avella of Skeptic's Guide, and I'm going to plug the shit out of him because he's a fantastic role model. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's fantastic. He's wicked smart and really knows his shit. But again, drawing back to the main point, it is very trend-based, and a lot of people, they get caught up in that when they get into the industry. They don't stop to go, well, is that actually true? Like a little while ago we were saying that the exact opposite is true. Well, okay, what does it actually say? So there really isn't a lot of critical thinking, and it's one of the things that I myself am trying to bring to the industry. And further on down the line, I'm going to try broadening my my reach online to try to explain away as many myths as possible, because every few months there's a new dietary villain, there's some new product. I mean, I come from the grocery store industry, and one of the things that drove me nuts about that is seeing, you get these big buzzwords, back in the 90s it was, everything had to come in a fat-free style. Then in the early 2000s it was no MSG, reduced sodium, this, that, and the other. And it's just all these products that are basically the exact same product as before, but now it has a snazzy new label, and 99% of it appears to just be marketing.
And it's really just the same shit that it always was.
Exactly.
My favorite is they're now with 10% more, and they've just added 10% to the container.
Yeah, it's like 10% more to the container. We're just selling you 10% more air.
The thing about that is that they're saying 10% more. Well, 10% more of this specific macro or micronutrient.
It's really not, but it's really not a lot. Yeah.
Is that kind of like that antioxidant phase? Is that kind of what that was like? All of a sudden, people are just throwing these terms in there, and they're saying, "Hey, we should do these different things, and let's add this percentage going into it, and try and make it so it's more popular."
Yes, the perfect example. I can't even believe I forgot about that one. That one drove me right up the wall, because all of a sudden we had this entire 8-foot by 4-foot section of juices at work that were all exclusively antioxidant, which not everybody seems to understand that too many antioxidants actually isn't that good of a thing. You can overdo it on the antioxidant and cause more harm to your body.
Tons of vitamins. And so let's say if I don't want to eat healthy and I just want to eat chicken nuggets and pizza and fried chicken and fucking, I don't know.
I hope you enjoy your 30s, because they'll be the last decade of your life.
That sounds a lot like my diet. My kid eats great. I eat like shit.
So the question is, can you supplement? I guess we're derailing Hannah's gluten segment, but can you take supplements, like large quantities of supplements and vitamins, and still eat like shit? Will it affect you? Are you able to move on with your life? I mean, so let's say, for instance, I have a grandmother who literally ate super healthy her whole life. She's 93 or 94 years old this year, and she's in amazing health. Not mentally, but she's amazingly healthy. But she ate super healthy her whole life, and now she's eating junk food like crazy and taking vitamins to
be brutally honest, if I make it to my 60s, 70s, that's it. Like, all holes barred. If I want to eat something, I'm going to fucking eat it. Because I've made it. I've earned the right to eat it
now.
Basically, the entire end goal for the entire concept of whether or not gluten-free fad diets is basically you need to have good general dietary concerns. You need to pay attention to what you eat. You don't have to do your notebooks and count calories and be like a food Nazi about it. You just need to pay attention to what you eat. Try to eat a little bit more of this, a little bit less of something you eat too much of, and just pay attention to what you're doing. Don't go nuts all the time. Yeah, you can have junk food. You can eat a bag of chips and you can eat chocolates and stuff, but don't do it every day.
Moderation.
All weekend long. Too much of anything is a bad thing. That's really the end goal. For you want to lose weight, you got to pay attention to what you eat. There's no magic pill. If you can take 1 million vitamins and your body's just gonna piss it out. Whatever your body doesn't use, it just goes through and you expel. There's no added benefit. 10,000% vitamin C. Great, you'll use 100, and then you're just gonna give the rest of it to the toilet. There's no benefit to those kind of things.
The fish in the water will be eating it from your waist.
You're gonna have some very expensive urine, like Sheldon Cooper said on Big Bang Theory at one point.
No, you're giving the fish that in the water that your sewer system floods out to, more vitamins.
Or the alligators or
whatever wildlife,
Velociraptor.
wildlife your pipes flow into.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Hanna, about trying to get things from diet. Is one thing that, as I go forward, that I've tried to bring to my scope of practice, my business, is encouraging people to see supplements as the definition of the word is a supplement. It's an addition to your diet,
right?
Instead of and it drives me nuts because people are like, well, I'm on this vitamin, that vitamin, blah, 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 and they tell me like 18 different vitamins they take every day. I'm like, great, shove them all in a condom, throw that right up your ass. And if I can just make this quick aside, I get so pissed off when I hear people talking about big pharma. Look at the amount of profits that come into supplement companies. Take a look at the billions of dollars that they bring in.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that that's not about marketing.
They're bullshit too. Like, they don't have regulation like regular pharma does. So
they don't.
Right.
That.
Right.
But nobody actually looks at that side of it.
Yeah, holistic medicine and all that kind of stuff. What's the one where it's parts per million of water? Ugh.
There's benefit to like natural ingredients, and there are things that some of these ginger root and all that kind of stuff, they can do positive things when it comes to
right.
that.
But some things really do work.
Yeah, they work to a certain degree, like you would if you ate a plant off the ground.
Right.
But they start attributing things like stress relief with fish oil.
Like these are things that there's no correlation, there's no causation. What's happening when there is some kind of positive effect from sense and some things that you bring from memory or whatever, it's the placebo effect. And that's the last thing that I wanted to talk about with this, is that a lot of this stuff that we're talking about is the placebo effect. Like, if you plan on being like, if I eat this stuff, I'm gonna feel like absolute garbage. Well, it's just the placebo effect. Is people, if you think that you're gonna get diarrhea, cramping, bloating, headaches, or whatever, the things that you think are associated with celiac disease, your body can start to create these kinds of symptoms if you really, really think you're going to get it. It's the same thing with stress relief. It's the same thing with the stress relief stuff. Like, if you think lavender is going to make you relax and calm before bed, if you think about it hard enough, there's a chance that you'll become calm when you associate.
Right, and what it is like, usually they get people at like their lowest point with that shit, like the going to bed and lavender and bullshit. And it's like they're so stressed out that they're like, okay, they're hopeful that this is going to work. So they have this great idea tied to the scent, which, controls memory and all that other bullshit. So yes, it's going to bring you to a happy place and put you to sleep because your fucking mind's already programmed to fucking do that.
Yeah,
because you were hopeful. You were hopeful that, okay, and it's like with gluten and celiacs and everything else. There could be other things that people are eating that are, they're making them feel like shit. They might not be sleeping well enough. There may be mold in their house. We don't fucking know. But they get this idea in their head and they're like, oh my God, this has to be it. So let me do this. Mm-hmm. And because you have this positive idea in your head that this is going to work, guess what? It's going to work. You might not have cured the fucking problem.
Yeah.
But it's just your fucking mind. You're literally changing your mind to think it's something else. You're lying to yourself.
Mind over matter. There's all kinds of really, really powerful things the mind can do. And
if you think you're sick, you'll look for reasons to be sick.
Meanwhile, gluten-free shit is twice the fucking price of shit that does have gluten in it. So you're just making people money off lying
organic.
To yourself. Yeah,
But
you're just making other people money off lying to yourself.
So let's get back to the science on this, just because we're talking a lot of mad shit about it, and we should be able to back that up.
As far as the placebo effect, I mean, we could get some links for all kinds of different stuff, but we have the actual scientific resources that are attached to the celiac disease. Basically, the main resource that I've been using the entire time for all the outline that I wrote is WebMD, and their site's got their actual journalistic sources. I believe it's the Annals of Medicine is their actual source for everything. So.
The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, also has a very elaborate section on celiac disease and gluten sensitivities as well, if anybody wants to check that out.
Yeah, if anybody reads up on this, you're gonna start debunking stuff. So
it's true. Like I was saying, like the whole lot of this is, it's marketing. It's creating a new way to try to sell people food. I mean, the funniest thing that I ever saw before I quit at the grocery store was gluten-free meat. Newsflash, there is no gluten in meat. There isn't any.
No. I know how they can market that. No, the way they market that is that they feed the cows or whatever they're selling. They don't feed them a grain-based diet that has gluten in it, so they can market it as gluten-free. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even fucking kidding you.
I don't know if it's the same as in Canada like that, but that's an interesting take on it.
I don't know.
That's literally how they get away with that. That is literally how they get away with labeling it gluten-free. They feed them a feed that doesn't contain something that has gluten in it, so therefore it's gluten-free.
No, we just bounced around, but I don't know. Basically, did you have any other scientific stuff that you wanted to add to it? Because as far as like just giving people written out, we could read a scientific journal to someone, but most of the stuff is just we're gonna have some
they glaze over.
Yeah, the people could, if they want to get into some of the science stuff, some of the links that we'll have will be great to place to start.
One thing that I did want to recommend, Hanna, you'd mentioned that documentary on Netflix called Cooked. My girlfriend, I made her watch the first episode, and then she turned me on to the episode where they talked about gluten. So special shout out to the girlfriend who she helped me out with that. She was like, oh, hey, you should check this out in preparation for the show. I was like, oh, wow, that's a great idea. So giving her credit where credit is due. I've spoken to a friend of mine who is actually celiac. Like, legitimately, if she even gets like just a crumb of something with gluten, she has to leave to go home to make sure that she can prep herself for, wishing she were dead for the next however many hours. And we were talking about this because I had seen an article in Maclean's, which is a Canadian magazine. I'm not sure what the American equivalent to, and I don't really care to dig into that. Is they were talking about the dangers of it, and I brought this up to her because we were it's a relevant topic, and she was saying the best thing to come out of this marketing for gluten-free products is the fact that people with celiac disease now have an option. Because it became such a fad, is that now people who genuinely do need to go gluten-free are able to find something worth eating, because now they have all these alternatives, as opposed to years ago when they had to scour the dark net. Basically, they had to get through the mountains of kid or animal porn to find well, you should try eating all these foods. Now they actually can go into a grocery store and say, oh, this is an aisle that's dedicated to meat, and that's
a happy side effect.
Yeah.
It is. If you think about it, it's kind of like those late night.
Or they would literally have to make all of their food from scratch.
Pretty much, but
all breads, all those, yeah.
Like I was saying, to me, it just kind of sounds like those late night infomercials, where they make the person demonstrating the use of this product like an absolute nincompoop. They have absolutely no IQ points that we can register using the small product. Well, it's designed for people who are actually handicapped and have these needs, but they can't sell it on the open market because they won't have a big enough market, so they just kind of make these people look stupider so more people will buy it, and then they can sell more and make it more available to the people who actually do need it. No, this is actually just something that I wanted to impart upon people because it's fucking hilarious that nobody else does this. When it comes to things like diet, I really want people to take a look at the nutritional information, especially when it comes to, foods that have these buzzwords on them, gluten-free or low-fat or no sugar, low sodium, blah, blah, blah. Take a look. Compare it to its regular counterpart and take a look at the breakdown of the macro and nutrients and the vitamin counts. The funniest example I have of this is a couple of years ago, there was this small influx of products that boasted protein in them.
So thank you, Keith, so much, and thank you for bringing this important topic to a close. As we leave this segment and move on to our last segment of the night, we are going to talk about a new video game, but I think it's important with the gluten-free diet that we understand the fads that go on. We understand that people are doing all sorts of crazy shit to their bodies and thinking it's healthy for them, and in reality, we just need to tone it down and find the most scientific and reasonable aspect of life.
Or whiskey on it.
Or whiskey on it. I would agree with that. And pouring whiskey, we're going to take a quick commercial break so I can pour another glass of whiskey. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the new video game, Riot, and why you don't get to choose your own character. We'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hey, what's up? I'm Steve Hayes.
And I'm Dave Curry.
And we're from Prophetcast. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics on the Fox News Network.
They're not affiliated with Fox.
Everyone's a Fox affiliate.
If you guys like what you're hearing on Cellar Door Skeptics, please consider sponsoring us on our Patreon page. Our goal at Cellar Door Skeptics is to help promote more science, skepticism, secularism, and humanism in the world. We want to create better content for our podcast and for you, the listener, all while trying to help promote local activism. We're going to strive to make better podcasts, and I'll tell you what, we're even going to contribute some of the proceeds to charity. So please join us over at Patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics to make sure that you sponsor us for as little as $1 an episode. Thank you guys so much, and prepare for the revolution.
Looking for something new and exciting, or maybe just a change from the old atheist show format? Cellar Door Skeptics podcast provides listeners with hours of enjoyment each week on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out as we talk politics, religion, science, reviews of books and music, along with the occasional interview just for a twist. Join Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern as they bring fresh content to you. Walk with us through the cellar door as we help you prepare for the revolution. You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, and even on Facebook.
Hey, my name is Jeremiah.
And this is David.
From the God Theory Podcast.
And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Prepare for the revolution.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for sticking around through this amazing segments that we've had so far. Next, we're going to talk about a video game called Rust, where it's an open world game where you get to play player on player and you get to combat, survival skills, yada, yada, yada. But the big thing that came up with this was the fact that they changed their format. You used to be able to get any character you wanted whenever it started, and now they changed it so it's a randomly generated one.
What I thought would be a good topic tonight was to have this conversation, because this video game switched halfway through their format when it was released, and you know what they talked about is what people are upset about. And Gamergate, we talked about Celebgate, Gamergate's a thing, and there's a lot of people that are very upset by this news. And then all of a sudden, halfway through an update, they changed how you get your characters. And it went from you get to pick your characters, the race, the features, how your character looks, 100% randomly generated. So you could get assigned a male or female. You could get assigned, black or white or Asian or Hispanic. You could get assigned all these different characters, but yet you don't get to pick. And there's been a little bit of controversy that's came out, and I posted in a couple of different forums trying to look for people to come in and have a conversation about it, because I think there's two sides to the story here. On one side, we're looking at a video game that is, whether they're doing it intentionally or not, is being somewhat progressive in the way that they're addressing society. They're saying, hey, look at your privilege. Do you understand that you don't get to pick how you're born or what you look like? I guess you get to pick a little bit about how you eat and how much you exercise. I mean, if you put Keith and me next to each other, you'd be like, well, that guy works out and that guy sure as fuck doesn't. But if you think about it, and you think about the other aspects of it, a lot of our privileges are based on our biases and our upbringings and how we see different things. And so in this game, it's kind of taking that and just scrubbing it. On the other side, people are saying, hey, this is violating my freedom of choice. This is violating how I interact with the game. And I thought it would be a good conversation to close the whole show out with understanding everybody's perspective and what their thoughts are. So we're going to start with Mr. Hanna, the co-host here, and see what his thoughts on the video game platform are if he hasn't fallen asleep yet.
Well, I'm probably going to steal somebody else's perspective. This is it's a very simple situation for me. It's really, this is what you're complaining about.
Seriously, have you not seen the internet? Come on.
It's a game in fantasy land, and you can't deal with not having the cis white male that moderately looks like you in your game. I have no anger or anything that I would ever even remotely manifest for not being able to pick the character. Is the game a good game? Is it fun to play? Whatever. These types of things, and they're not that important in my perspective. And so whenever I create a game or play a game or make a character or something like that, it's just whatever. I'm absolutely fine with your Steam ID being what triggers it. Because once you get your character, like once you log into the game, it's on Steam, if everybody's familiar with that. It's an online gaming platform created by the people who started off with Half-Life. Well, right. That now number itself. So when you die in the game, you can't just like create a new character. Like, oh, I'll get a new randomly generated. It's the same one, and you get it forever. And so it's a little more restrictive than just kind of randomly generating, and you can get a bunch of new ones. That's the one you get, and you always have that. It's a little bit of a stretch for me to get to this really, really social manifestation and symbolism. It's a game. It's cool. It's a nice perspective. The thing that surprises me is how angry people get about not being able to. I don't want to play a woman, or I don't want to play a black character. Like, I don't understand that. I really, really don't. And so, like, that's the thing that surprised me about this. It's cool that they're going to try to do something different, because innovation in games, whatever works, man. If people like it, they'll buy it. If they won't like it, they won't buy it. Right. And it surprised me that people get this pissed off about not being able to pick their character.
Okay, I'm going to interject before somebody else starts talking here. Hanna, have you
heard of... There's only one person left to fucking talk after you, assholes.
Anyways.
Privilege is showing.
Hanna, I don't know if there's an MMO that I play called Star Wars: The Old Republic. You get to play with fucking lightsabers, and people still complain about that game. If there is something to complain about, people will find it. Anyways, back to you, Jen.
See, I'm like really fucking OCD in my game. I love open world third person gaming. Like that's my thing. And I am fucking OCD anal about what character I'm playing and how I think the look of this character and the attitude of this character fits into the game and the overall story. Saints Row was absolutely one of my favorite franchises I've ever played. And it honestly, and not because I would be pissed about being a man or being a girl or being black or being Asian, it would just piss me off that I put time into building my character because this is how I think the feel and the look of the character should go to the story, and then you're just going to fucking change it on me. It's like, no, this is not what I was envisioning with this game, and this is not giving me the experience from the fucking game that I want. Saints Row was groundbreaking because they introduced women.
What if they choose to change that, though? What if they decide, hey, I want a different narrative? And the one caveat to this game is once you die, you have to create a new character anyway. It's not like you didn't get to keep the same character for, See,
that would just annoy me anyway.
Well, then you wouldn't play it. We wouldn't have a problem, right?
But I'll go back to Saints Row. You can go into the game, and if you're not feeling how the narrative is to this particular character, you can change the character yourself. But I like having an open world third person game is you get to control this world. This is a world that you get to do things on your own time, and you get to, pace the missions, and a lot of the time there's choices that you have to make to control the outcome of the game. So why are you not letting me control the fucking main character? I don't give a shit if it's a woman, black, white. I don't fucking care about that. It's the fact that there's a certain attitude and a certain way that I think the character would fit into the experience, into the story for me. It's like with Saints Row, I was used to playing with a male character because that's what they only offered male characters in the first one. So I stuck with that through the franchise, and then once I was done playing as a male character, I would flip to a female character just to see how the narrative went. And for that particular game, the narrative and the story just didn't fit with a female character to me. It just didn't fit right for me. It's not the story that I felt I wanted to tell.
Well, see, and I guess, like I said, that's an interesting perspective. And when we look at it, the game is the one that's choosing for you. They've gone to a randomization. They basically are changing the narrative, if you want to call it that. So if you look at it on your side, you're saying, hey, they have a set narrative. Well, this game is changing the whole dynamics of it.
But is it changing the story? Is it changing?
It's not really a story. It's just a survival type game. It's like a Sims game per se, in the realm of survival.
Okay, and even then, it's like, when I see games like this, like the survival games, I kind of want to see it through my eyes, because this is how I would wind up connecting with the game, and this is how I wind up being good at the game. It's what would I do? So I want something that I can connect to and something that I created to say, okay, this is what I feel connected to play this game the way that I want to play it.
So how about this though? So let's stop. Let's say the game says, you know what? Nobody cares what anybody else thinks. We're gonna do what the fuck we want, right? And to a point, they have the right to do that.
They do. It's their game.
And in the end, I mean, obviously they made this transition, whether they did this on purpose or not. I don't know, honestly, whether they did this on purpose to create a social statement. But in my opinion, this is a very big social statement. What they're saying is hey, you know what? I mean, to a point, they're going to make me as a white male fit into a whole different role. They say you could be a black female. You could be a Asian female.
Okay, but is this a game dealing with the apocalypse? I'm not very familiar with the game itself. Is this a game dealing with like the apocalypse and like the world's gone to shit anyway?
No, it's a survival type game. So it's like
a survival game into what aspect? Is it the world that we live in now?
It's more natural.
Yeah.
Basically, from what I've been able to see in some of the images and stuff, it's like naked and in the wilderness kind of stuff. Like I don't know what that horrible TV show.
Naked and Afraid.
The world is harsh. The environment is not kind. Bears and wolves will chase you. Falling from a height will kill you. Being exposed to radiation.
You know what? You want to create this big fucking social statement about privilege and what you're born as and everything else. Then why the fuck are you putting it in the wilderness? Why the fuck are you making it a survival game? If we want to make a fucking social statement about this, then let's make it a social fucking statement. Let's have the characters change in a real-time environment where if you are a white male character, you're going to benefit from white male privilege. Don't fucking give me the shit that we wanted to be innovative and make a social fucking statement because your fans are pissed off at your programming.
Ooh, just on that thought, why not make it so in GTA, if you're a white character, you kill somebody, the cops don't chase you, but if you're a black person, you walk in front of a cop and, oh my god,
and this
they come
is what I'm talking about. And that's what I'm talking about. If you want to push this, we wanted to make a social statement, then let's make the fucking social statement. A fucking wolf doesn't give a shit if you're a white fucking man or a black fucking woman. You know what you are to them? Fucking dinner, and that's it.
Okay, but hold on. You're missing someone in this aspect. You're missing the point of, you're right, this area doesn't mean anything. The environment they're putting you in technically doesn't mean anything. But the whole point is because it's an online interactive type game, you have to build tribes. And so what's happening is you're getting men, white cis men that have to fucking, play as a black woman, and all of a sudden they're like, well shit, that's not me, I can't associate with this. And then other people are treating them different. And it's bringing out a social standard. You're seeing groups interact with each other in ways that they can do online because they can't go to jail for it that they can't do in real life. And so, there was this one comment on the article that I read where this individual was like, the worst part about this is that people are giving me creepy rape comments. Men don't get creepy rape comments very often. I did it at the gay bar a couple of times, but for the most part, I don't get creepy rape comments.
See, I didn't realize this was an online social kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Tanner, don't you know that all lives matter? Come on.
They don't.
Well, how about we've heard from everybody basically because I'm gonna guess Tanner has got a few more tricks.
I'm sorry, but it would still irritate me. The fact that I can't have that kind of control over a game that I spent $60 fucking for. No, let me have fucking control over it.
Well,
that's where my OCD comes out in.
Games on Steam are cheaper. They're usually shorter, smaller games. I don't believe this would be a full price $50 game. Or whatever.
See, I'm not a PC gamer. I own a fucking Alienware, and I'm not a PC gamer. Go figure, right?
Okay.
How fucking wasted is that? But it's still, if I'm gonna pay for the game, I want that kind of control over it for me. That's just my OCD.
To be brutally honest, I don't think I'm representative of the population because to me, I'm just going, okay, whatever. I'm playing a game. And part of this game is that they give me a character. I don't get to choose the character. They give me the character. I mean, yeah, it's cool. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I play, again, like I said, I play Star Wars: The Old Republic. I've got a couple of characters on there. One of them is a badass female Sith Lord. And, of course, a buddy of mine, he saw that, and he was like, figures you'd take a female character, just being like a misogynistic dick. And I was like, this, of course, is years before I even kind of had the verbiage to form a proper argument about him being a, prick. But anyways, that's a minor side note. if you really want to get into it, like what Jen was saying was, there's a gamer challenge called Hey Ash, What You Playing? And they talk a lot about social justice issues in the video game community. And it's all satire, but they did one episode where they were talking about the video game awards of the year. And the main character, Ashley, and her brother were talking about, what video games that they thought should get certain superlatives or, nominations for various awards. And across the board, she kept recommending Saints Row 3, Saints Row 3, Saints Row 3, because, the female characters, they weren't just thin women who had certain, they had the gigantic tits that, had graphics designed just so that they would bounce extra, that they had, badunkadunks that you could really play the bongo drums on. I said that just because I really wanted to see Hanna giggle and laugh, and I was not disappointed. But because you could create a character who was, ridiculously out of shape was their main point, and why Ash kept harping that, Saints Row 3 should really win those awards. And I agree with that. I mean, let's face it, you take a look at a lot of video games, and how do they portray their female characters? You go into I think one of the other better examples I have is Gears of War 3, where even the female characters are wearing those big, bulky cog gears, but you take a look at her face and you go, damn, girl. She's got the long, flowing blonde hair. She's got the fair white skin. She meets a lot of these specific requirements for sexually attractive video game characters. But getting onto the social commentary angle of it, I think it's kind of interesting that, you might end up seeing or having to take a different perspective as, when you're a male playing as a female, not by choice, but because you have to, getting those creepy rape comments. I would hope, and I'm being a bit of an idealist, and I realize that, and thinking that, maybe, just maybe, these assholes might realize, oh shit, that girl on Tinder who got pissed off at me for sending her a dick pic that she didn't ask for, she actually had reason to be angry because I have 5 of them sitting in my mailbox in the last 3 minutes for playing this goddamn game. Or, having to play as a black character, all of a sudden you've got 10 white characters ganging up on you because you're black.
Or they're avoiding you.
Yeah. They're making a point of walking the other side of the street. And to be brutally honest, though, white people have that experience of, people of other ethnicities or even just other white people walking on the other side of the street when they're walking around with a shaved head and Iron Cross tattooed on their shoulder and all around just kind of looking like they belong in a neo-Nazi group. So I just wanted to put that out there because, all lives matter, and I'm being an ass just because I love seeing
It's because you want to be a dick.
Because whenever I say that, Tanner just goes, oh, and I can see from the other side his sphincter is clenching tight.
Every time you say all lives matter, one of my eggs dies.
All lives matter, 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 all lives matter. I get drier to the point that I can never lubricate myself again. But back to the point is that it might be an interesting social experiment to see if people realize that their behavior might subtly change based off of characteristics that aren't.
It won't. But you know what? And I hate to say this, but it's not going to change. And I'm sorry, this experiment is bullshit. Because when we're dealing with people through a screen, we're missing a huge part of the personal aspect and the human aspect of it. And this is why people are assholes on fucking Facebook. And guys send fucking dick pics and treat women like shit online, but wouldn't have the fucking balls to whip out their dick in a fucking bar and say, hey, baby, look at this.
That's because they know in public they can get arrested for it. They can't get
but even please, you have not been to a club in New York City. You don't know what the fuck goes on in those bathrooms, okay? Yeah, they do crazy shit.
They do.
But I think it's because it's this fantasy world, and we're looking at the screen, and we're kind of thinking that we're not dealing with real fucking people.
But here's where I would disagree with that aspect. And so you're right. Okay, how about this? You are right in the aspect that, yes, it is a screen and there is a lot of people and everybody's, you can say things and do things that you think won't harm you or harm
And there's that anonymity to it.
You're right. But hold on. The big point, though, is that if the video game, and we're taking an assumption here that they're doing this as a social experiment, if that's the case, what they're doing is they're adding their voice to the social norm aspect. They're saying, hey,
guess what? Look, this is bullshit. This is wrong. Hey, let's figure out how we can look at this and examine this in a different way. And so while you're right in the aspect that in the end it probably won't change that many minds because it's not really a conversation versus a dictation, if you want to call it.
Right.
Touche.
But on the opposite side, what they're doing is they're adding another little tick mark to that. So if you look at, like, so for instance, Bruce Springsteen, he doesn't want to play in North Carolina. Then, you know, the next person doesn't. The next person doesn't. The next person doesn't.
And then we eventually start this ball rolling that maybe can get an actual conversation going.
Yes. And so it's a social media revolution, if you want to call it that. And, you know, like our tagline is prepare for the revolution because, you know, we're hoping that we engage enough people in a conversation.
Which I swear to fucking Christ is happening right now.
Yeah. And our goal is to engage enough people in a conversation that we get people thinking outside of the box, thinking outside of their biases, thinking outside of their norms, and having a conversation with somebody they disagree with. And, you know, we do this. I used to do that all the time, and I think that we need to inspire others to do that. And I think, in my opinion, this video game is doing that. This video game is saying, hey, whether you accept us or not, whether you want to go trash talk or bully other people online or not is not our problem. We can only control our circumstance. And once we get to the point where we can control others, then fine, great. But we can't. So what we're going to do is control what we can control, make the statements we're going to make, and hope others do the exact same thing.
And start to bring it off the screen and into life.
And really pollute Reddit as much as possible.
Well, that too.
I'm waiting to see the time when humans evolve to our technology to the point where we do feel actual human compassion, like we're actually interacting with humans on a screen instead of it just being a fucking screen. What?
Go the other way.
Yeah, good luck with that ever happening.
That actually ties in a little bit to the conversation. It basically ties in a little bit to the conversation we had earlier about cybersecurity and stuff like that. Can you imagine in games if you had? I mean, there was no question. We knew who you're interacting with, no question. You have a biological chip. Your gene code, your genetics is your new Steam ID or whatever. I mean, anything like that completely 100% identifies people online. Like, then, you know, that's the future of, let's say, of gaming or something like that, where we've lost the anonymity. People are going to start treating each other because if you act like a dick, people know who you are, and it'll force you to do that. That could be something that happens in the future. But like Chris said, this could be a small stepping stone. It's a small social experiment, and if it affects people, hopefully, if they have a really negative reaction, maybe they'll think, you know what, maybe we should think about why I think this pisses me off so much, I guess.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Hanna, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think Jen froze, but
yeah, you know, a great face too.
Oh, she's gone.
Yeah, but you know, you're right, and I think that if we don't start having that conversation, what are we going to do? And you know, we were going to talk about another issue, and I think that, you know, given the amount of time we've spent now, if we do that, we'll be here for another 2 hours. You know, I wanted to talk about the bathroom bills, and I wanted to, you know, I've talked a little bit with Callie privately, and you know, stuff like that, and that's some of these different activism sides, right? But, you know, with how we see this game, and we have to figure out how we're going to make social change as quick as possible. And, you know, will we at some point get to the point where we interact more with each other and force people through those chips, Chris, like you were saying, to understand who it is? I don't know. It would be nice if that happened, though you do sound like the Antichrist just a little bit right there. And I talked about one world government last night. Now you're talking about chips. Shit, you and I might be the next Antichrist, for fuck's sake. But, you know, the big point here is that we have to figure out how to move society forward in the best way possible. And, you know, we can, Esther Ann, when we had her on our show, she talks all about this. How do you move humanity forward? How do we make things different? How do we make society a better place? And we can argue over, you know, whether I'm an atheist and you're a Christian, or whether I like the Red Wings and Keith likes a shit hockey team. And we can argue over whether Hanna's going to, you know, sit here and bitch at me for the next 2 hours for, you know, keeping him up past his bedtime. But if we can't figure out how to move society forward to a more progressive state, all we're going to do is run it into the ground.
And so on that note, after we've ran this show into the ground, we have to do outros. We have to tell everybody, Keith and Jen, or Jennifer. I'm sorry. Tell everybody, Jennifer and Keith. It's where we can find the two of you. If anybody were to be so advantageous to have a conversation with you in the future.
Advantageous? Ugh, God, I feel sorry for the poor bastard who thinks we're worth talking to. Oh, that was out loud. So that's kind of awkward for me right now. Anyway, for anybody looking to find our show, we are Not Another Atheist Podcast. Punch it into Google. You'll get a couple of hits from, say, Podbean, Stitcher, Facebook. You might find the hashtag on Twitter or even on Tumblr because, it automatically updates there. We're in iTunes. Please, we're looking for reviews because we would really love to broaden our scope. We've only got one piece of hate mail, and we're looking forward to talking about that in our next episode. It's going to be a good time.
I'm sending you hate mail as we speak. Right now, I'm going to email you some hate mail right now. And then you'll have
it's going to be about how late I kept you up. Excellent. I can't wait.
That's Hanna. You got the wrong.
I guess my Twitter is an atheist in YYC, all one word. That is an atheist in YYC. YYC being, of course, the airport code for Calgary. That's where I live and do my business and all that. I go to the bathroom here, and that's more than anybody really cares to hear.
Yeah.
Just a huge thank you to both Chris, Hanna, and Mr. Tanner for having us on tonight. You can find us at Not Another Atheist Podcast on both iTunes, Podbean, and I believe we're on Spreaker. We're also on WordPress at notanotheratheistpodcast.wordpress.com. My Twitter handle is insomnia_mama. And I'm on Instagram also, I think, as Insomnia Mama as well. And thank you guys again for having us. We always have such a good time here.
Yeah, it is.
So thank you all for joining us tonight. It was a wonderful episode. We covered so many great topics, and we'll have to have you back on again because it seems like every time we get together, it's just a long 5 to 10 hour conversation that we edit down to an hour and a half. And so I want to do the listeners justice in saying that we will have you back on here.
You know what would be great, I think, for Patreon once you guys start doing well, because I don't think we'll ever have a Patreon, is that what you should do is you should do an outtakes show of all the bullshit that happens with you, Jen, Hanna, and I, because Hanna, I love editing when Hanna's on because he makes a lot of remarks that people just don't register during the show, and I sit there like if I'm drinking, it comes right out my nose. He's a funny motherfucker. You just don't hear it.
I don't hear it at anything. I never hear it. So
we get it. You're deaf.
So thank you guys so much for joining us tonight, and make sure you stick around because next week we're going to have a little bit more of a serious show as we're going to be talking about child abuse, and we're going to be interviewing a author from the book 1324. So thank you all for sticking around so much through this show. You can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, and even Twitter. And hell, I think Instagram now, and Flipbook, and Pinterest, and all those damn other locations. Anyway, you can find us by finding Cellar Door Skeptics Podcast anywhere and everywhere in social media. Thank you, everybody, and have a good fucking night.
Oh, Christ, that was awesome.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker, cellardoorskeptics.com.